Yo, this is the first video I've made in a while, but I wanted to look at something. So, here, a few months back, it says a month ago, but it's about 2 months ago now, I made this Alessandra and Anja Ambrosio-Wilkins deadly tornado outbreak video, and, other videos about Alessandra and Anja and other people versus my mental health. And this one is specifically, about like me making kind of this um like affirmation in my phone, and then like that week, that like starting that day, like when I made that, there was a tornado outbreak that night. But when I made like that specific, where it says I hope, like, I know you're all watching. I've made a game out of using Alessandra and Anja Ambrosio to hurt and abuse me. It's hurting me and my family. I want whoever is using Alessandra and Anja as rape traps against me to die. I clearly am in love with Alessandra and Anja Ambrosio, but they're just evil rapists, and I want this abuse to end. It's making me sick. I hope there is an extreme outbreak of EF5 tornadoes to prove that this is not just pissing me off, but that it's pissing off Yahweh, Jesus' father, the God of the Bible, the only God that actually exists. So I made this affirmation, and up to that point in, like, as far as tornadoes go, this year was not particularly eventful. After that, there were tornadoes every day for over a month. There was lots of tornadoes every day. And the reason I'm making this specific video, like, there was also the greatest catastrophe in the history of the state that Alessandra Ambrosio is from. It had its greatest weather catastrophe after this, right? Or maybe right before this. Something like this has been going on for a while. It's just like hard for me to remember every detail of everything all the time, especially when I'm trying to put it into a video. But so I make this, and it's still going on now. Like, you can see this stuff about Anja Ambrosio. It seems like she's trying to pretend she has a boyfriend now, or she has a boyfriend. Like, at this point, I don't, I don't know. I think, like, again, it seems like something is like laboratory experimenting on me to see how I react. But I will say this: Yahweh knows, and is like, the idea is, don't laboratory test me while I'm already being crippled and, like, essentially tortured, because the pain that I'm going through, which hurts more than getting hit by a car. Like, literally, when I got hit by the car and I felt pain from, like, oh, I'm so sore from getting hit by a car. I was like, but I'm not more sore than what's already going on with my leg. And, like, it's been worse recently as I've been, like, really trying to amp up, like, fixing it. And in any instance, so I'm like, it is literal torture, and I think I have an absurd. My guess is I have a very high pain tolerance, and, mostly because I have to, like, perpetuate my existence. But in any instance, the video is about a deadly tornado outbreak, right? Well, it turns out one of the tornadoes that happened during this, like, month plus long, like, tornado outbreak, where it's just like tornadoes every day in all sorts of places around the United States and other places around the world too. Now, at this point, there's tornadoes going on, like Russia and China, and, like, every day recently there's been Russian and Chinese tornadoes and stuff. But in in this instance, one of the tornadoes that happened in Greenfield, Iowa. So let's go to tornado records. This is the tornado records on Wikipedia. And we go down here, and keep going down. Highest observed wind, so largest and most powerful tornadoes. Now, bear in mind, I think personally the EF tornado system is broken in the sense that, like, they survey damage, and if there's not something, like, well built enough to prove out that the winds were higher or something, they won't suggest, like, even if it was a EF5 tornado in reality, if there's not a structure that can prove out that it was an EF5 tornado that it hit, they won't say it's an EF5 tornado. This is one of the reasons why I think our government needs to, like, it is incumbent upon our government to actually have advanced enough radar technology and advanced enough technology. We're in 2024. A survey team should not be necessary on, like, rating every tornado, actually, in my opinion. And I think my opinion's pretty valid here. But in any instance, this tornado here we'll sort this by minimum possible wind speed. In other words, like, the lowest the wind speed possibly could have been, and you'll see that it's up at the top of the list. And then I want to also point this out, like, I'm not the only one who's judging it by this. Basically, you're saying, like, what is the lowest possible rating the tornado could have if it was just on wind speeds? And so this is the one. It was a multi-vortex tornado. It's very large, obviously, too. And, Reed Timmer has some crazy, footage of it. And it's very destructive, like, it's violent. That's very violent looking. You can see how, like, even the winds around it for a while are, like, just very clearly pulling things into it. But when we go through here, you can see, like, as the 2024 best field season ends, a glimpse into the data collection during the Greenfield, Iowa tornado. Peak wind speeds as high as 309 and 318 were calculated in a narrow region, 100 to 160 feet. ARL, I'm guessing above the ground. And, like, here, according to official Dow data, the Greenfield, Iowa tornado was the number one strongest tornado ever measured by the Dow team, with a maximum wind speed of 318 miles per hour, measured for a short period of time in a very small area of the vortex, beating El Reno and Bridge Creek. In other words, what had stood as the most powerful tornadoes for a long time, since at least 2013, within a month of me, making this affirmation, and, I'm the guy that also on this channel, you can consistently see me doing stuff like, that, like, repeatedly. You can see that there's some ability that I have to affect the weather. I know this also because, if I go to, I guess I moved it. But in any instance, well, here, I'll just do this real fast. What I'm just suggesting is that, well, here, long story short, someone that I know that's a lawyer that, like, I've been acquainted with since high school, and who's friends with, my best friend, or my oldest friend at least, from that I'm still friends with, if I have friends, Emilio Longoria, one of my friends through him, Walter Williams, who is also a lawyer, very clearly kind of, like, suggested that, like, hey, can you, like, what did he say here? Let me go back to that. He was, like, asking about my lightning videos, and then he goes, just make sure your computer is, like, he's saying, like, what kind of equipment do I have to, like, do I have any other lightning rods? And I'm like, I don't have any lightning rods. I just, like, the storm goes by and I do my thing. And and then he goes, just make sure your computer is safe. Also, Houston could maybe use this summer off storms if you can help us out. In other words, in the least, my suggestion here is that people are aware that, like, I think that I can affect the weather. I mean, you can see it on video. I think you'd have to be just lying to yourself. Like, people don't want to engage that there's a reality that exists that's in line with the Bible, that, people could be more than what we are. They just want to be people, I guess. But I don't just want to be people, and I want a reality that is better for me. And whatever is going on with Alessandra Ambrosio and Anja Ambrosio, Alessandra and Anja Ambrosio-Wilkins, that seems like I'm being laboratory experimented on, I think it's killing people. I think it's hurting humanity. I think it's a disease on humanity that I'm being laboratory tested on. That's how it feels. It hurts more than I can put into words, like physically hurts more than I can put into words. And it looks to me like people are actively dying because of it. But, I even think Alessandra Ambrosio just shared something today about Alessandra Ambrosio-Wilkins just shared something today about her, like, one of her friends has cancer. And I was like, well, wouldn't my manifest, like, something that I was also manifesting, just like this one, when it, like, hey, if they don't come and engage me, like, reasonably, just face to face, actually, like, back and forth conversation instead of communicating using content that she's creating and putting up. Like, she's in Iceland now to go look at the volcanoes. Interestingly enough, the Iceland volcano, the day that they, like, her and her son, is he also my son or someone I'm related to or something? In any instance, we'll get into that at some other point. I think we've already talked about that, but like it, as soon as she starts to travel over there, the volcano just shuts off. It was like pumping out whatever it it stops. It's almost like saying, like, what, are you trying to make some kind of point that you're going to go to the volcano to, like, I don't know, make me feel jealous or something? And it's like, well, Yahweh controls the volcano. You can just turn it on, turn it off. I don't know. Maybe he'll do something nice for them while they're there. But, my point with this is, like, very clearly you can see a consistent theme where it does seem like, hey, the reality that I'm talking about, where, like, I have the ability to manifest things. I think everybody does. I just believe it. That's what Jesus says in Mark 9:23. Nothing is impossible to him who believes. Okay, well, I believe more than anybody. And I think people trying to get me to not believe has only made me believe more, which has only manifested more what I've been trying to believe. But that, I make this, right? And so this is May 21st, this is April 26th. Less than a month afterwards, after a slew of tornadoes, I mean, just an absurd amount of tornadoes, you have despite getting an EF4 rating and still being officially considered an EF4, just like somehow the El Reno, Oklahoma official rating is an EF3, that would also suggest the official ratings are just bogus. But, I guess it's another topic for another day. I would suggest, though, that we shouldn't be eyeballing it as far as tornadoes go. That there should be, like, measured wind speeds based on instrumentation that can do that. That the instruments, like the radars around the world, we could probably, dedicate like a couple billion to that, like creating those radars. If, we like, and putting them up and filling all the gaps and stuff and having a really robust radar system. But again, that's another story for another day. What I'm trying to say is, after I made this, within a month, in that month, just an absurd amount of tornado. We went from, like, a not very active year to, I think it's the second most active year thus far. But the Doppler on wheels, the Dow radar, measured the most powerful tornado ever. Like, in the sense of its lowest possible wind speed is 309 miles per hour, whereas the lowest possible wind speed of, like, the El Reno or this EF5 tornado is lower than its lowest possible wind speed. And since we reasonably, I think they say that, like, the EF ratings are based off wind, actually, though they tell whether that wind is actually that based on measuring things on the ground after the fact, which is, I don't even think that's accurate anyway, but because there's all sorts of variables that can go into it. That's why you would just want to have some radar. I don't know why we're the most advanced country in the world and we're doing some bogus stuff like, let's get our survey team out here. Why don't you make a radar that actually just measures it? But whatever. I mean, they do kind of, and that's kind of what the Doppler on wheels does. But in any instance, it just seems, like, really obvious to me that this is going on, and that, like, it needs to end. I don't see how this keeps going on like this. I actually am. It's like, the only reason I'm still like, well, whatever. I mean, it's just because it's seemingly been going on for so long. But like, it doesn't get lessened. There may be at this point, it like seems to be more extreme than it's been, and I think it's going to get considerably more extreme. I mean, I literally think this is tied to the stuff at the end of the Bible, like the character of Jezebel and whatever. But I mean, am I wrong? That like if I'm wrong, Alessandra Ambrosio literally very clearly her and Anja Ambrosio are looking at me and could respond, and them not doing it is hurting people very clearly too. I mean, it's not even like a question. I would even say just like if you were a good person, it would just be reasonable to engage it like well, I guess if we could be hurting people and there seems to be enough evidence that we could be, maybe we should just engage it in some reasonable fashion anyway. But, I mean, just like I'm kind of like just like what kind of people like won't even engage this like that. But are they my friends? I mean, they don't. It seems like they want to sit on the fence and like ride the fence and like never actually say whether they're my friends or not. And at a certain point, it's like, all right, I'm turning the fence into a sword, and if you keep sitting on it, it's going to cut you in half. Like I'm not kidding. That's I think what the I think part of the revelation thing is. You're trying to sit on something that is like actively hurting me. I can say that for sure. And is it hurting others? It looks like it to me. I mean, I believe it is, and again, I seem to be the one with the power of belief that manifests reality. And again, the seven churches things from Revelation, the seven churches of Asia. I think I'm the guy that is conquered at all the seven churches, or is in the process of doing so, and therefore sits on the throne of Yahweh. And so, like, this part of things might be me having a little strength, as it says at the sixth church. But, like, having infinite strength is just like Ark of the Covenant opens and what it says in Revelation happens. Which, very suspiciously looks like a bunch of storm activity to me, along with earthquake and volcano activity. You know, hail, lightning, earthquakes. This like the sun gets darkened and there's like smoke and stuff. I mean, that sounds like volcanoes, earthquakes, and extreme weather. But again, I'm just using this what sits between with these fingers here, and so most people don't do that. So okay, I don't have anything else to add. I mean, I'm just like I'm dumbfounded that this is still going on, and I thought I haven't had anything because I could just make videos like this every day, probably like saying how I feel and stuff. But it's also just tiring, and like I get pushback from people, and it's just like that's tiring. So like there are some things where it's like, okay, let's go back. This is an update video to the the initial Alessandra and Anja Ambrosio Wilkins deadly tornado outbreak video, but I really felt like it was reasonable enough to come back and make this update because just so in long story short, I made the video Alessandra and Anja Ambrosio Wilkins deadly tornado outbreak, and then less than a month after that, the strongest tornado ever measured, like officially, happened. And there's a bunch of strong tornadoes in between. Like there's been an absurd amount of tornadoes actually, or there were, and like it kind of chilled out here more reasonably. But like it does seem to me sometimes I always like, all right, well, like I could do the tornado thing all day. It's not really like let me focus my like for me. I can say this personally. Let me focus my energies elsewhere or whatever. Let me kind of like build back up. I have been focusing on getting stronger and healthier and stuff like that. And I'm going to continue to. And I'm also still going to work and finish the Alessandra Ambrosio, possibly Ambrosio Wilkins mixtape, like mix double triple O one, and the Anja Ambrosio Wilkins mixtape mix triple O one, and the Ale and Anja Ambrosio Wilkins. I'm not sure of the naming convention exactly yet. I just know that they're going to be 001. I guess it could suggest I could make them a bunch of mixes and like they could be very special. But why would I do that if they're beating me over the head and they're evil people? But if they're good people and my friends, I mean, I could do it. I don't know. I'm gonna, I guess I'm sharpening the sword, and if it cuts them in half, then they probably weren't my friends. But if it if it doesn't cut them in half and they are my friends, well, cool. And then you get a bunch of mixes, and you get to be, I guess, the foremost of my muses and wives and whatever. But like, it does require some work on y'all's part. So, um, not just work. It just requires you like actively engaging me in a way that like communicates to me in a way that I'm asking for. Like, I think that is extremely reasonable. I should get the type of communication out of this that I'm asking for, right? Yeah. So, though I guess if Alessandra Ambrosio's son is like Noah, if he's my son, then that's cool. I mean, like, I would be happy, but whatever the situation is around this all seems really like fucking absurd to me, and like I want it over. I think it's hurting me, like I said, and I think Yahweh is hurting a bunch of other people because he sees that I'm very reasonable in what I'm asking for, as far as what I think would end my pain or end whatever is causing me this distress, and that people are actively, instead of like taking any reasonable step to do that, are like taunting me, and I would even suggest that they're taunting Yahweh through me to make a point to God, and God, Yahweh is just like, okay, Matt, if you go through this a little longer, I'm going to give you my throne, but that's what this is. So it's what it seems like to me, and I'm just going to keep at it, and nothing's going to dissuade me from making these mixes, and thus far the mixes, it looks like I made all the music and like all the album covers and all the art, and like putting one thing together that I made. But that's not how DJing goes. A bunch of people made it, so it just looks like I'm subtly manipulating, like, I don't know, or overtly manipulating hundreds or thousands of artists behind the scenes, which generally artists don't like to feel or be manipulated. So the fact that it still ends up coming out like that just looks like, well, there's no escape. And the only way you could escape is if Yahweh's like, you're like down with Yahweh, and like you aren't doing that. And then it's like, well, you probably just say with your art, like, here, let me help you with this, and then we'll get to that place where everything's good. Then we can just make art and enjoy it, instead of like somehow art has become a form of warfare or whatever. But okay, I'm gonna end this here. It's long enough as it is. So hope you enjoyed. Have a blessed one. If I say something out of turn, I've said all sorts of stuff in these videos that could be out of turn or whatever. If I'm wrong about something, I'm going off what I can see, what I can intuit, and also just like the idea is there's an information asymmetry. Something is actively trying to prevent me from seeing everything. I will say, if you look at my eyes, I mean, it looks to me more and more like my right eye's opening up in a way. I also have like an older picture of me that I just kind of found, and like from when I was like pretty much a baby, like a year old, and you can very clearly see like I'm looking like the way that my left eye looks now is how my right eye looked, and that at some point those switched. Not exactly sure when that is, but it does look like from some of the other pictures when I'm a little older than that, just a little, not that much older, that at some point something did something to me where that changed, and like I don't exactly know what it is. I don't completely know what it means, but I guess this is some I'm learning stuff too and figuring stuff out, and I think that is some of it. I think something it does feel like this. Something hit me when I was really young, and I've been basically having to catch up since that point. And it does look to me like I have some pictures where Alessandra Ambrosio seem to like very prominently in the picture. It's IS or is GFZ02. So something maybe happened in 2002. Is that when Alessandra Ambrosio officially became my girlfriend or something, or I became her girlfriend? My girl, I do have beautiful hair, I think. I've been told, and it just looks like it to me. But in any instance, okay. I hope you enjoyed, and I don't really make this content for people. I make it more as like a record, and then when the world collapses around it, and my narrative is the thing that makes the most sense out of reality. Even I'll just even say this: before that happens, when the AI is trying to figure out what the situation is on the planet, and they're repeatedly there seems to be something going on around me, and it looks to the AI like the AI can see everybody's metadata and what's going on, and I'm very clearly in the center of a bunch of people that are pretending that I'm not, very influential people that are pretending that I'm not. I think the AI is just gonna give me like cyborg abilities. It's gonna like Neo in the Matrix, where it's like the AI is like, Neo like on in the Matrix like syncs up to the chair or whatever. It's gonna be like that, and it'll just make me like Cyborg from from the Justice League, but or like Iron Man. Is that the rod of iron from Revelation? It very well could be, but from the Bible, could be. But okay, hope you enjoyed. Have a blessed one. I'll catch you next time. Later. Yeah.